Hello and welcome to Not One Right Way, the podcast. My name is Melissa Manuel, she, her, and here we are once again to talk about all things entertainment with my bestie.
Hello, it's me, Marve. They, them, theirs pronouns.
How are you, Marv? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty darn okay.
I'm feeling pretty darn sleepy.
Yeah.
We've done a few interviews this week, and I don't know, just a little extra sleepy. What are you watching?
I tried to come up with an answer before you asked me this, because I've told you everything that I've been watching.
Yeah. I know, you can't be like me. I've got so many shows.
I know.
You could give me the same show, different take.
Same show, different take.
Or a webcomic. You can be honest with the people.
To be honest with the people, and I've made no efforts to hide the fact that I watch anime. I am rewatching, for the 5th time, Hunter x Hunter. I usually do it in the summer. The summer was really crazy, so I'm extending my rewatch time period. It's as good as ever. I love it. It's fun. It's like something you can turn your brain off to.
I'm glad you have that.
Yeah. What have you been watching?
I'm watching the new season of Abbott Elementary. Always very fun. Maybe I've already talked about Abbott. I'm not sure. Probably. But just watched the new episode. And it was funny and good. Great sitcom. I'm trying to think of what else I've been watching. Bob's Burgers is back, new season. Also watching Bob's Burgers. Also great sitcom. So it's the weekly stuff that keeps me going, as well as Crime Scene Kitchen. It's also coming out weekly because I can't cook without a cooking show on. So thank goodness for Gordon Ramsay's nonstop empire of cooking shows.
So true. Gordon Ramsay. He has the best butt out there. Best butt in the cooking game.
I mean, I know my fiance Harrison would agree with that. I don't know if everyone else would.
I did say that, and I also don't agree.
Because I just watched Culinary Class Wars, and I feel like some people on there got better butts.
Some people on there have better butts. It's true.
We'll have to talk about that show another time because that show was perfect and I miss it. But somebody just as amazing as Culinary Class Wars is our guest for today, Lila Schmitz, someone who, I don't know, I want to say she changed my life for the better. I met her when I was a freshman in college, and I don't know, just brought so much joy into my life. Made me feel seen and good when you're young and trying to figure out who you want to be in your friend group. But I really looked up to her because she was a senior and I was a freshman. But this is a big preamble. Lila Schmitz is the legal and operations assistant for Dropout, but that's her official title because she just does that for Dropout. She's also a writer, a producer, a director. She does so much, and I'm always constantly impressed by her talent. If you haven't seen her documentary, Job of Songs, it won Best International Documentary at the Galloway Film Festival. Don't know if I'm reading that right. She can correct me. But please come and say hi, Lila.
Hello. That was so sweet. Thank you. The Galway Film Fleadh, it's Irish, which is a hard language to read. Yeah, wow. I feel very lucky to have met you and know you and be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling tonight?
I am good. I'm tired, but also hyped up. It's been a wild time. This week has been just crazy. Just totally crazy. We'll see what comes out. It's either going to be like straight chaos from me or, normal, totally cool stuff. So you get to decide the adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
We're good with the chaos. It might be a chaos kind of night. We'll see.
Perfect. I'm in.
Yeah. So you met Melissa, and I also met you, Lila. We were not nearly as close. So you probably don't know this. I left college and I'm a social worker. I have a degree in social work now. As a social worker, I just get real deep with it with people right at the beginning.
Let's go.
Our first question for you is, what shape of pasta do you think is most you?
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? A bow tie. Definitely. 100%.
Very quick.
Yeah. I feel like I should own bow ties, but I don't buy clothes often enough to own one. But now I'm like, I should get a bow tie. I won't, because that would involve shopping, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah, a bow tie pasta. I know it's about food, which is even better, because then you can just eat it and you don't even have to figure out where to put it in your closet.
It's true. Lila canonically still has the wardrobe I met her in, like 2017.
I do. I was just talking about this. I think I do wear exactly the same thing, and most of the same clothes. Most of them haven't even changed.
It's true. It's very comforting. Like, oh, something's never changed. I don't know.
I am currently wearing merch from my company because that is comfortable and easy to acquire, and those are the barriers for entry for dressing myself, I would say.
Comfortable, easy to acquire. Got it.
Yeah. Free, even better. That's ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of free t-shirts I have from my last company that I just wear as comfy clothes, insane. Because I would always order the extra large, because it's great, now I have a free comfy t-shirt.
Yes.
Oh.
Amazing.
I only have 3 of them from my last workplace because they would actually sell them for money. And it's like,
No,
you're ridiculous for that.
you can't.
I'm just waiting around. I'm just going to wait around until somebody's like, oh, I got rid of this because I don't want it. And I'm like, perfect. Brand merch for my workplace.
I think expecting you to purchase merch from the place that you work for is pretty absurd.
Agreed. It should be free for you. You've already put in enough hours here.
Yeah.
You should at least get a t-shirt.
Yes. You can take that up with the University of Denver if you want to. I don't think they will respond well to that. So what about a bow tie do you think is most you? Because I'm thinking, I like the part that it's got that little zigzag at the end. I think that's fun.
I think that's fun. I think I in general tend to eat sort of pie roll pasta, or the shapes that are smaller, bite size, I don't have to get noodle juice. Gross. I don't have to get stuff from the noodles getting flinged around, because it's bite size, and that is something I can deal with,
Yeah.
Manageable, cute.
Yeah,
small.
very, very cute. And then a bow tie, big over spiral, because obviously it's very cute. It reminds me of an actual bow tie, which is one of the best pieces of clothing
That you don't own.
that I don't own. Yeah.
I love that. Lila, why don't you share with the people a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what drew you to being in this crazy film world? Did you know you always wanted to be a film person?
No, I did not know that. I grew up in Austin, Texas, and I got into theater quite young. I did plays, I acted in plays, and I was in choir, and I love the arts, specifically performing arts. I like to paint pictures. They're terrible, but that's a different thing. But yeah, I think theater and music have always appealed to me. So when I went to college, I was like, I'm going to grow up. I don't have to do art. I will do something like business and be a business person and be responsible. Immediately, 2 months later, was in a play and was like signing up for a whole like conservatory program the second semester of my time in college and auditioning for that and like spending 24 hours a week doing what was a film and what was it like it was an acting studio. I was at NYU my freshman year and they had an open art studio at Tisch, which is the film theater school within the university. And so I applied and did this like conservatory just for the semester and learned about film through that because we had to like make some little films. And I was like, this is interesting. It immediately sort of kicked into gear my perfectionism and detail orientedness because you can manipulate everything that you've made and like make it so much stronger by paying attention to the details. And I also feel like it's really nice to be able to like explore what you can do and like, but with theater, it's memorialized in a way where it's like right now and it's out and that it's gone, but it's also whatever you said in the moment is what you said in the moment. And I think like I really like with film that you have control over what's going out into the world. There's longevity. It's just a totally different thing. So I fell into film. And then when I transferred to Colorado College, where we all met, I found the film program there. And it was very small and intimate and a lot of people doing a lot of things. And I was lucky to be in groups of mostly women and non-binary people and being able to sort of like share that space with people who, you know, wanted to create together and tell stories together that we were interested in. And I still work with those people to this day, including Melissa, sometimes when she'll have me. She recently was on a music video that we made and helped out. And like, yeah, I think it's like building that community was really great. And then, so when I left college, I moved out to Los Angeles. Well, first I was basically a TA for the film program, which I only mentioned because Melissa also had that job.
Well, such a fun job.
It was really interesting. So I moved out to Los Angeles and I moved a mile away from all my friends from CC who were living together. Then started day playing, which is like, you know, doing freelance work that's like jobs that are not long term. So it's usually a day or two that you're getting committed to. I was a production assistant and I met on a Disney music video set. I met some grips who were like this old guy who's just an old union guy was like, why are you smiling? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just happy to be here. I think he was really surprised because it becomes an old weathered machine in these like union gigs and you don't get a lot of new energy. And I was bright and shiny and bushy tailed and very excited. And so we became friends and he started teaching me about like how to be a grip, which is like the part of it often is lighting related, but it's never plugging in lights. It's like the shaping of the light. So you're basically you're carrying heavy stuff and setting it up. Anything where you're carrying heavy stuff and setting it up is often the grips. That's my best explanation. I don't know if yeah.
And may I say, it's what Hollywood is missing. Where are the grips? Where have they gone? Everything is dark. I cannot see. Please, grips, come back.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, the
technically, I
song-
think that would really be the electricians, but
I don't know. Whoever makes the night scenes brighter, come back. I cannot see anything on the screen. I'm dying.
Good.
Sometimes Sometimes it's just like for fun lighting, and like you're not even gonna do that too. Like the intensity, the emotion in the colors and the lighting, and like you're not even gonna do that too. They're like, oh, we can do it in post. Like what?
That's a great observation. I just feel like I can never understand or see anything that's going on, so I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
Oh, it's something that's plaguing us as a society. It's not one of the more important things that's plaguing us as a society, but it's definitely one of them.
Hey, it's on the list. It's on the list. It's a long list.
Yeah.
So I learned how to grip. I made flashcards, which is, if you know a grip, it's hilarious because basically there's a lot of jargon and words that are used to keep people out. That's a harsh way of saying it, but there are words that make you in the in crowd and not. So learning those very quickly is a great benefit. And so I made flashcards, perhaps one of the few groups to ever make flashcards of the like just the terms that I was being taught of like, the classic one that people always say is like a clothespin is called a C47. And it's like, why not just call it a clothespin? And I'm sure there's a reason, but they're clamped. Every clamp has a different name. Every burger, every whatever. Anyway, so I did that for a little bit and then was offered a PA position in Austin that was consistent and would be for a full show. I made a very interesting leap of faith to leave the grip stuff and go do the PA gig, which is in the moment looks, the grips were like, really? What the fuck are you doing? Like, sorry. Oh, this is a clean podcast. Sorry.
It is not. But
Okay. I thought I saw it was. Okay, great. So yeah, you get paid so much more to be a grip, but I was like, I am not really interested in being strong enough to do this job, and I was working with like the old guard who are all like, you have to be really buff and be able to lift stuff really high above your head, like whatever. Which is not the only way to be a grip, but it was a challenge for me. Also, I wanted to work on something that I knew what the show was, and I was interested in the content. And so I took a leap of faith, and I had an inkling that Richard Linklater might be a part of this show, and that is why I went and did it. And it turned out that he was. He was an executive producer. The show's called That Animal Rescue Show, and it's a docuseries about people rescuing animals and animals rescuing people. And it's very sweet.
who rescued who?
Exactly. Social work.
I don't know if animal rescue is social work, but I accept I accept that as
she
part of
condoned
my
that.
beliefs now.
Yeah, there were lots of pigs. There was a pig pageant where the pigs got dressed up and did a like runway situation. Yeah,
So cute.
it was pretty cute. And then the pandemic hit as we were nearing the end of shooting that show. And so I quickly drove home because I was living with my parents, and I drove back to my dogs and partner and roommate in Los Angeles and continued working for the show. Oh, also, when I did that show, like I immediately became the key PA, which is just the PA in charge of the other PAs pretty quickly. And then the showrunners lost their assistant who had a family emergency and she had to leave. And so they asked me to do that, which is a completely different job than being a PA. But I was very game. So I got my way into working as a showrunner's assistant for these two documentarians. One's a journalist, one's a documentarian. And I worked with them for a couple years. We finished that show together, and I ended up as an associate producer on that show just because I am kind of neurotic about doing everything where there's a gap, filling the gaps. And I'm like, well, that nobody's doing that. Somebody has to do that. That's sort of how the whole trajectory has gone, I would say. Yeah, the last film that I did with them, I was a co-producer. I was a story producer and then became a co-producer on that movie. And then I decided that this is so long. Is this interesting?
Yeah, keep going.
It's very interesting. Keep going. Keep going.
I forgot a whole portion, which is that when I graduated from college, I went to Ireland and I shot a documentary that was meant to be a short documentary. It's about a community of musicians on the west coast of Ireland who play this music that's very deeply ingrained in sort of the culture and like tradition, and it's passed down through the generations, and they find community and connection through the music.
Job of
So the Job of Songs is what it's called. And we got a grant to go make a short film, and we shot so much. I went with two of my friends from school, who I had met in the film program, and I forgot to feed them. Like, we didn't eat. Like, it was crazy. It was like we didn't have a car the first 2 weeks, and it was just me and Annika, one of the other two, who's also a producer and director of photography and one of my dear friends, and we were like walking miles carrying camera gear to go do an interview. Like, we were so silly. But we got a bunch of great stuff, and the community, let us. We were very gentle about our approach, and the community let us in and told us some really, deep and beautiful things about their lived experience. And so it turned into a feature film just based on what we shot. And so that's the background for the work part. The whole time I'm also making that film and editing it and all that. And so after I stopped working with the documentarians, I took a job as an assistant to their manager, who worked at a company called Anonymous Content. That's like it's a production company / management company, which is like representation, right? So he represented my boss at that company, and it's very much in Hollywood and in that world, and it was totally different. And I made that leap from like being a co-producer and like, being sort of having started this career in documentary. I made that leap because I wanted the option to see what was out there in scripted and like try to understand better than just funneling into documentary and staying stuck there. Also, the like film I was working on at the time was so emotionally taxing, and I was like, I can't do this again. And documentaries often are very tough. And so I think I was just trying to figure out, like, do I go learn more or do I try to, keep on this path? And basically I often choose learn more. Yeah. So, I worked at Anonymous Content, and that same year that I worked there, the documentary premiered at Doc NYC, which is America's largest documentary festival, which was a really big deal. And we took it there and took it around after that to other festivals. I quit the assistant gig because I was like, okay, I learned that. I'm good. I'm good. I will leave that behind. And then took the film to Ireland to the Galway Film Fleadh, where we won that award and got to show the film to the people in it and bring it back to the community, which was really special. And after that, I like tried to sort of do creative stuff. I applied for fellowships and I applied for grants and all this kind of stuff. And none of that panned out. And I was like, well, okay, what's next? And a mutual friend of ours, Sky Mahaffey, was like, do you want to come work at the Guffin Playhouse, which is a theater that does, a sizable theater here in Los Angeles? And so I went and was a carpenter and really went back to the not thinking too much, but using my body instead of my brain. And for years I had been, just on my computer doing just that. And it actually was a really, I think, important step, and it's such a strange one if you ask anyone who would read my resume, trying to figure out if they should hire me or not. And I built sets and I was a stagehand, and I worked on a show where I had to cook a Thanksgiving meal every single night, sometimes multiple times a day, and then they would throw it on the ground. But it had to taste good because they ate it a little bit, and it was family recipes. It was way more complicated than it should have been, but you got to do your best and make it taste as good as possible.
So in your role as a carpenter, you made all of these Thanksgiving dinners.
Yeah,
because
the theater
that you needed to fill. There's a gap you needed to fill for that Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it was me as a stagehand, but the reason I was able to be a stagehand is because I was a carpenter.
It also speaks to what you said earlier. It's like, well, nobody's doing that, so somebody's got to, and I guess it's me, and it's Lila.
Yeah. That is kind of, I don't know. I love figuring out how to make things work, and I think that's the main thing that interests me, and it can apply to obviously like pretty much anything, as long as there's still more to learn and more to figure out and more to refine. And like, it especially helps if there are people involved that, if it's about like bringing people together and having them sort of connect and all that. Yeah. I was also making music videos on my own time throughout this process. I made a short film called Love in the Time of Corona that did festival runs. So I got to go to festivals and like network that way and make some actual real friends through going to festivals with that short film and with the documentary. And Melissa helped on a number of those things. Like a champ. Yeah, and then as I was sitting backstage as a stagehand, I was specifically looking to see if Dropout TV had any jobs, and they did. I had looked before, and I wasn't like trying to get hired particularly, but I was starting to get bored as a carpenter because, like I said, like it's got to be interesting if I'm going to keep, going at it. And Dropout had a job, and it was legal and operations assistant. And I was like, well, I've done a lot of legal. I did all the legal on my documentary, worked with lawyers, and I did a lot of legal for the other documentaries that I've worked on. And it turns out it was mostly just a detail-oriented job, and the legal stuff that I brought was extra and has been great. But first job I got not by knowing someone, which is wild, or not by like somebody saying, hey, you should look at this person or whatever, which I think is sort of depressing to say out loud. But also it's great that Dropout considered me. And the reason that I was looking at them specifically is because I had sort of fallen in love with the lore of the company, and I liked the content, and that it was joyful and like diverse and funny and lives in this fun world of like in between scripted and unscripted content. They had like a really interesting trajectory as a company where their investors pulled out at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, and 6 people stayed on to keep it running, and it had been a company of 100 employees, and so that was very inspiring to me, and I just liked the whole vibe. And they were lucky, like luckily they gave me a chance, and I've been working with them now for over a year, and the problem solving is still incredibly interesting, and they've been really lovely at letting me like do all sorts of stuff, and I help like just trying to find like all the things that we can improve, and like it's a team of like-minded people who are interested in like making life good for people and making good art, and they let me make these like behind the scenes documentaries that I've been making for Dropout Presents, which is a live show. It's like recordings of live shows. So it's like comedy specials and fringe theater shows that they've recorded. And that's been really cool to like flex the creative muscle as part of my job as opposed to my side job. That's my long-winded story.
And it was a good story. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I want to try and put a sort of neat bow on all of it because there's a good through line there somewhere. And I think it's that you constantly stayed curious and you were never afraid to try new things, which I think is hard for some people, especially in the film industry where it can be really intimidating to like leap in and do something that you're not familiar with, like becoming a grip. Because like you said, if you don't know the terms, you can get iced out by the old grizzled pros, or going and doing an assistant job, which is notorious at an agency where it's notoriously kind of like brutal and very corporate and scary, and then going to be a carpenter. So but at the same time maintaining your own personal creative projects, which I've been lucky enough to help on some of them. I think you're a very creative person, and you are also a very kind and empathetic person, which draws people to you, and it allows you to work with amazing people, and people want to keep working with you. And that's also a big part of your story. So it's just hearing it all in that like wonderful little section that you just gave us is really beautiful to hear, because it shows just how resilient you've been and that it all pays off.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were going to be so nice. I would have brought tissues. Just kidding. You're always nice. But yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, yeah, you're totally right.
Because I'm thinking of it like, what would a student be thinking, or what would someone who wants to shift into this industry feel like they need to do? And sometimes it just feels like there's no way to get in. Sometimes it might be that way because of the way things are, and I think it's just a matter of staying curious and being willing to do the odd job, and joining a random set and helping your friends make a thing goes a long way.
I think if you stay curious and you're like willing to work your ass off at anything, like I think that's something, right? Like I am not the best carpenter, but I was a good employee and I did a really good job because I care about it, right? Even though that's obviously not the like main thing that's important to me as a occupation, and like I probably won't ever be a carpenter professionally again. Like I think it matters to the people that you're with that you respect what they do, and like I also am somebody who's interested in like the sort of more management-y type of jobs, right? Like directing is really just listening to the people and the script and the cast and all the creatives, and like bringing those ideas together. And like, yeah, it's about like having a vision helps and is great, but being able to let people's ideas come in is really, really so helpful. And also just like the lived experience of that is so much more fun than just going off and like tunnel visioning forward, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in hearing your story and hearing you talk about your current position at Dropout, it sounds like you have a lot of respect for their craft as well. How do you think that plays out in your role doing like legal operations, detail oriented stuff?
I think it's empowering because like that's how I want to work in that side of it. Like it's sort of more the kind of studio executive-y side, like right, working in operations is that, and that can often get a bad rep in Hollywood, rightfully so, by the way. So I think like approaching it with respect and care for others and like having, which I think is hopefully my general approach to anything, and that's my goal, but having that met with people around me doing the same thing is rare and really special. And also like the content is important to me too. Like I do care that we're making content that doesn't make me feel like a bad person by contributing to that. Like I don't want to spend my time making something that I don't think people should watch. And I have done that. And I think that was a big one for me. That's why I sort of was like, okay, I got to leave and go be a carpenter and figure out what's important to me. And I came away being like, okay, it's important to me to work with people that I respect and like, and it's important to me to work on stuff that I respect and like, and at least think that is like bringing goodness into the world, not the opposite.
Okay.
You're very good at making that kind of stuff. From the job of songs to the music videos you've done for Jael, to your own short films, to your title is legal, but you've made these amazing little documentaries for Hank Green and Chris Grace and Adam Conover. All of those are just, like, it blows my mind that they let you do that, which shows how fun Dropout can be. I see them, like, I remember watching the Hank Green one and texting you and being like, this is so Lila. Like, even though this is like a piece about another person and his experience, the way you filmed it and directed it still felt like a Lila Schmitz piece. TM. It just had your signature, like showing people on screen with love and kindness, and it's such a good series. Everyone has to go watch.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it's like, when especially with documentary and like when my scripted stuff is a different version of this, but especially with documentary, I fall in love with everybody who I get to, who allows me to spend time with them and like learn about them. And I think the best thing a documentarian can do is share the love with the audience and be like, look at why you should love these people and like look at what they're doing. And yeah, it just like feels really special because you spend a lot of time by yourself with them, and it's very strange to go and be like, hello, person in real life who I feel like I know extremely well, who doesn't know me at all. Because I edited them as well. That's what that is in reference to. So you spend a lot of time with the footage and you see, like just the beauty of what makes people human. And yeah, so I really appreciate that. I think it's a really cool thing you can do with storytelling and specifically documentary.
Mm. I really resonated with that. I feel like something about being able to just be open about the fact that you just fucking love people. Like, humans are so diverse and interesting and unique, and meeting them is like, I get to do it all the time. And I don't understand the experience of like documenting that. And as you're describing, like the story through the editing, through the choices you're making, that's not really the experience that I've had. But I can really understand and resonate how that is really a transformation of the love that you feel. And like this experience of meeting people and wanting to portray them in a loving way. Like, wow.
Yeah, I feel like that must be relevant in social work.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like it's I think a duality is sort of similar to what you're describing in documentary, where I'm in a position to do so much harm, to like really fuck over somebody's life. And that's something we talk about throughout my education and throughout my experiences, that like if I do something wrong, one, it's probably because the system we're working in is fucked up. And two, it has a real human cost. And that's something that you sort of have to live with and balance with the joy, with the love of supporting and helping and just knowing other people. Yeah. It's
That's
tough.
such a huge responsibility. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't see what Marv you do in social work and what Lila you've done as entirely separate. It's like you're both trying to create change, knowing that it's not immediately possible. Like it's you put it out there and it's up to whoever you're handing it to take it, you know? Like when you're putting out something, whether it's a conversation or a piece of art with the intention of like changing someone's mind or like trying to help them feel better, you can only do so much. It's like I've put out this work into the world with the intention of like adding more empathy, teaching people something better to like change the mindset or the culture, but it's really going to be dependent on the viewer if they accept that message or not. Because again, like Marv said, it's the systems that we're living in that are really hard.
Yeah. Totally. Art. We
People.
love art. Yeah. Yes. The visual hearts for the audio.
For the audio podcast. As we reach our final minutes, Lila, you have so much experience and across multiple mediums and formats. Do you have any advice for people who might want to be a writer, director, whatever it is?
Yeah, for the viewers, I made a scared face. Or whatever, the listeners. I'm not versed in audio only. Gosh, advice for people. I think that's really hard because it's such a gnarly industry in a lot of ways. And I have landed in a wonderful, wonderful spot. And I feel very lucky and like it's not the general. That ain't going to happen for everybody. I do think that my advice to people is like, I think most people get into the industry in some kind of way because they want to be creatives. Ultimately, if you want to be a creative, I would say create things that is going to get you further. And like also thinking about why and what you're trying to do and like what your goals are. I think a lot of us are sort of like, well, we want to get to the top and do the things. And like speaking of Hank Green, he talks about becoming successful doesn't feel any different. Like you still are trying to get somewhere and like you're always wanting more. And I think that really stuck with me when I heard that because it's if you're in this sort of like rat race just to get to a certain point, like is that going to be satisfying or would you be better off picking up your phone and going and making a short film and like developing your skills and like doing some writing? And I believe so wholeheartedly in scrappy everything. Like I got to make these behind the scenes documentaries with Hank Green et al. Because I was scrappy about it. And I was like, you know what? I can do this for basically no money. And they're like, well, free content for basically no money. Like, we're not going to say no. It's like, great. But like, you know, Hank Green is someone who I have admired for a long time. And I got to go and interview him and make him cry. And like, obviously I didn't make him cry, but he cried in the interview, which a win only because it means that he's like feeling something, right? It's not just like a basic sort of conversation. And so I don't know. Is that advice? It's just meandering like nonsense. I change it want to sit down with a young filmmaker, a younger in their career filmmaker than me to get coffee, and they're like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want?" I think that's it's more what do you want than what do you do. At the end of the day, yeah, I think it's important when you're early in your career to kick some ass and like work really hard and do all that. But I also think it's like every day is our life. Like the life isn't in the future, the life is right now. And I think that's important to consider.
That's such good advice. I think I was one of those youngins who sat in front of you when you were probably also just trying your best. And I was like, what should I do, Lila, with my life as an artiste? And I think you got one of the best answers out of me, which was like, as long as I make something that one person out there makes them feel better, makes them feel seen, then I've made it. I'll feel accomplished. And that's been my driving force of like why I needed to leave games. Because I didn't like what I was making. Military, not me thing. But now I make things that I'm like, I know someone will watch and it might mean a little more to them. And I'm hoping to continue that path of making more and more meaningful stuff. And then you also gave me this other great advice when I was dying in game dev. You're like, you're just making a video game, just a silly little game. I was like, you're so right. Why am I crying at work? So you always give great advice.
I mean, I give that advice and then I also go and cry at work. So like don't think that I'm like not doing that.
This is true.
Yeah.
We're all doing our best.
Yeah. Doug Prey, who is a mentor of mine, always says
Doug Prey.
The Doug Prey. Yeah.
Levitated mass Doug Prey.
Levitated mass Doug Prey. Yeah. He made his first film was called Hype, and it was an ensemble film, and it was definitely inspiration for when I was trying to figure out how do I make an ensemble documentary, because there aren't that many of them. Anyway, the Doug Prey says to take your work seriously and not yourself. That one was on my wall for many years, and I think that helps a lot for me.
Yeah, good one. Thanks, Doug Prey.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, Doug Prey was also a Colorado College alum, like the three of us. Our professor, Scott Critch, when I was in one of his classes, taught a whole class with just Doug Prey films. And we watched his film Levitated Mass, which is about this big rock that they moved to LACMA, the Los Angeles Museum of Art. And I hated, sorry, Doug Prey, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry. I did not enjoy the film. I was like, this is ridiculous. This isn't art. And me and Scott Critch still fight about it to this day. Well, love you, and I'm so glad we could talk to you. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Love you so much.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. See y'all later. Thank you,
See you later.
so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. That was our conversation with Lila. As she left, she made a terrified face trying to figure out how to leave the call. Always leaving me with a smile on my face.
Yes. I feel like I often leave these conversations with a smile on my face. Yeah.
Same.
It's been really great recording.
It has. All our guests are so wonderful and so kind to share their stories with us. And
yeah,
like we talked about today, people are so freaking cool.
Yeah.
So interesting. And often when I ask people to be on the podcast, they're like, I'm not interesting. I don't have anything to share. And then they come on and they're the most interesting, cool person ever. So
yeah.
Everyone's story is unique and important. And I believe that more and more each time we do this.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to say goodbye. And remember to like the episode, leave a comment about whatever controversy we brought up today. Subscribe, tell a friend to listen, or email us if you have any questions.
And remember, there's not
One
right
way.
to identify as a bow tie pasta.
There's not one right way to figure out what you want to do in the film industry, whether it's carpentry or legal work.
There's not one right way to make hundreds of Thanksgiving dinners.
There's not one right way to make little documentaries about stand-up comedians. Thank you so much for listening. Bye!
Bye!